We worked with the same people in the same place, doing the same thing day after day, until either we got lucky enough to be able to retire or we died. It was this way for too long, but we could hide it until COVID came, and then we couldn't hide anymore. And then what happened? People started leaving their jobs in droves. We started looking for work that fulfilled us and allowed us to be better parents and partners. Those who did stay at their jobs started working more from home on their own schedule. Instead of battling traffic every morning and afternoon, we spent more time doing the things we love in the places where we love to do them. And people are moving and taking their jobs with them. Work is changing, but not always in the right direction or fast enough. So rather than being a victim of change, we're driving change in the workplace. This is the moment.
Well, welcome everybody. My name is Jan Barlow and I'm the founder of the HR Disruptor Summit. That was a little preview of our in-person experience, October 5th through 7th here in Dallas. And also part of our virtual experience that started actually July 12th and will run through September 29th. And my guest today is one of our featured virtual disruptors, is Ashley Brundage. Ashley, thank you so much for sharing part of your day with us today.
I'm very honored to be here to disrupt things.
I love it. I love it, my friend. And you are the true and essential empowerment disruptor. And when we met in April at a DEI event here in Dallas, and I must say that one of the biggest impressions and the energy that when we met was all about really about empowerment, true empowerment. Like you embraced life as an empowered being. So first of all, thank you so much for exemplifying that. And when it comes to any of our disruptors, that's really a big part of what makes us different with the summit is about attracting others who feel empowered, right? And that's why it's so essential. You know, if you would share a little bit about your history and background, and when it comes to empowerment, how that became your passion.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's interesting when you talk about empowerment, everyone will have their own definition of what it means and how they associate being empowered. Um, and so I studied empowerment for 8 years and did an entire research study called Empowering Differences. And I found lots of examples of empowerment. I found that every single human we talk to wanted more empowerment. I've yet to find one that doesn't. So it's very interesting when we study humans, and obviously the study of humans is part of human resources.
Yeah.
And so kind of going through this personally for me, I actually lost my job because I wasn't being authentic as an employee, kind of like in that promo video that played, people were just trying to make ends meet and move from one day to the next day. I lost my job, and then I was forced to really reevaluate how I would live my life in the world because trying to find employment in the construct of 2008 after the financial crisis.
Yeah.
2008, 2009, 2010, it was really not the greatest time to be looking for a middle-level HR manager role. And I was going to have to start at the bottom and work my way up. And when I realized that, I said, you know what? I'm going to not live a double life this time. I'm going to live one life so that way I can streamline my productivity and produce at a great rate for an organization. But I started facing harassment and discrimination to go with my homelessness after my house was taken from me. And that is when I realized I went home one night and I was like, I had a door slammed in my face by a potential employer. And I went on the computer and I said, how to overcome obstacles. And guess what I found? I found an article that said that I needed more empowerment. And that then became kind of my, okay, well, then what's empowerment? So then I literally Googled empowerment. It was the next Google that I did. And it said that empowerment was authority and power connected to people. So then I said, okay, well, I know what people is because I've worked in
Yes.
HR.
Yes.
So what is authority? And so then I started researching authority, and I said, well, authority is like, who's the boss? It's like a boss-like mentality of the way that
Yeah.
we think about the world, right? It's a being, it's a sense of motion, it's a sense of accomplishment. So really, it's everything related to you and your being and how you view existence in the world. And it's all the human part of human resources.
Yes.
It's all those emotions. It's mindfulness, it's meditation, it's your health, it's your wellness. Now we're talking about all of these things. It's the feeling of interrupting someone or making a disruption. Why are you doing that? It's because you want more authority. And so the authority portion was, I was like, wow, there's so many applications here for this authority portion of empowerment. And it's really hard to track.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
So hard to track those, right? You could do a human capital survey, you could pulse, you could do 360 review panels, find out what people think about you, but are they actually going to tell you the truth or not?
Right.
So that's why empowerment starts with you. Starts with you because you have to know what you feel is empowerment. So I actually, in that moment, created an empowerment self-assessment so that way you can answer your own questions in relation to empowerment and write them down so that way they're memorialized. Okay. And so that's my empowerment self-assessment.
I love that. The know yourself, right? I mean, the out of your 4 steps, what I love, first of all, Ashley, thank you for sharing your why and how that started in 2008, because that's how mine started. It's from our own personal experience of hitting that wall, right? Of that dead end for us to experience it. And it's through our journey that passion came about, right? And what that topic was that had both of us start our own mission on what to serve others that will help others, right? But we went through it first,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's really what gives it the charge, especially with empowerment. You talk about know yourself, and out of the 4 that we're going to briefly cover, know yourself, highlight differences assessment, developing a strategy, and empowering actions. That know yourself piece, just to share a little bit, like what we talk about self discovery. That's so old news. We have got to do self mastery now. I mean, this flipping disc and this is fluff. Okay, it's 2020 put us all on a global couch to look within. Would you not agree?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, because people are going to be anywhere you are in the world. So when you're examining the empowerment self-assessment questions, you have, and your differences assessment, right, around how you are different from the other people on this planet. You have to ask yourself, where do you live, right? Because where you are in that moment in the world,
Yes.
right? Because like today, I'm in Brooklyn,
Right.
New York, and what I have access to in Brooklyn is way different than what I have access to if I'm in Thailand or if I'm in wherever else I might be next month in London, right? So it really did where you are and then
Right.
what you have access to. Those 2 questions will largely impact how your differences are perceived and how you will also perceive them to be different. Yeah.
So when we talk about, what's interesting, people's perceptions change all the time, right? The programming that we're raised around in our environment, right? And then our life experiences or contrast of life experiences change. So our perceptions change because of that. I love that you include geographical, right? Because we don't think about that. Even traveling within the US.
Oh, yeah.
Like you said, when I lived in New York, it's totally different than when I lived in DC, than when I grew up in Ohio, right? I mean, it's a different bubble. Would you not agree?
Yeah, well, and actually, so part of my story, right? So I have found a job as a part-time bank teller, empowering all of my differences using step 1 and 2
I
in my
love it.
empowerment program,
Yes.
know yourself and know others. And then I started using step 3 of developing my empowerment strategy for all 10 of my differences. And then I started using the last fourth step, which is the empowering actions as leadership actions to impact humans and to track the actions and track what you do. And it was the tracking of what I did in relation to all of the 50 different regional markets for PNC Bank that led me to becoming the National Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at PNC Bank, in charge of a program of building a DEI strategy for the 50 different markets that they had.
Wow.
Yeah, so literally Ohio, we had 7 different major cities, 7 different regional presidents,
Yes.
7 different markets in
I love
one
that.
state. So
One state, 7 different markets.
yeah, Youngstown, Cleveland,
Yeah.
Akron,
Yes.
right? So literally, right? It's
I
like, and
love
then,
it.
right? And then Texas, right? It's like
Oh,
literally each one is a very different market, right?
yes.
Austin is different than Dallas, which is
Yes.
different than Houston, which is different than the border towns, which is different than El
Yes.
Paso, right? So literally each one needed a different DEI strategy, and laying the foundation for that view of the world, right?
Yes.
Different customer base lives there,
Yes.
different employees live there, different people who we wanted to be a customer, right? Because if you don't
Right.
think that diversity, equity, inclusion, HR all result back to business, then
Yes.
you're missing what empowerment actually means.
That's exactly right, because it's the people are the basis of everything. And if
Well,
you're, right? I mean,
well, the authority, power, and people are the bases of
yes.
empowerment. But yes, people are the obviously that you cannot have empowerment without people. You cannot really technically have empowerment with just a corporation or an organization or an entity, because back to the definition, it's authority and power connected to people. Nowhere there does it say, you know, ABC Corporation, nothing against
Mm-mm.
ABC, but
No,
I mean, doesn't say that that it's corporation driving resources for people, right? No, that's not. It's the people supporting the people. That's
that
empowerment
that's
in its
it.
truest form.
So, when we were just talking before we went on air, how 2020 changed human behavior, right? So I would love to know, before versus after, when you've been doing your empowerment workshops, have you seen, just from your observation, have you seen a shift when it comes to pre-COVID versus post-COVID, when it comes to the desire for empowerment? Like, do you feel there are more and more people who are becoming aware about this self-empowerment and being more assertive, or assertive defined it, like, to just start harnessing it?
I think that it's being used more as a buzzword and a marketing strategy and a recruitment campaign for people and goods and products and services, which is exactly what fuels my company. So I'm like, this is
Right.
great. Y'all want to just keep using empowerment in the wrong lens. It
Right.
literally gives me the hope to know that I'm going to have an amazing business model, to
Right.
help people really foundationally understand that that's not actually what empowerment means.
So, but do you see, like, when you have those one-on-one conversations? I know that you go to, speak one-on-one, just like how we met, right? Those one-on-one
Yeah.
conversations. Do you see, though, that people want, like, they really desire? It's not coming from a neediness of a, victim, but coming from a conscious desire for empowerment. Do you see a shift there?
I mean, I think that like the murder of George Floyd sparked this quest of wanting to, in generally speaking, of people wanting to learn more.
Right.
I think that I've already seen that subside some, which is sad in my opinion. I feel like that we should be advocating for others at the same clip every day. So yeah, that's a little bit frustrating. But I mean, I think that it's just until someone, like, the light has to go off, right? The
Yeah,
light
right.
has to go off for someone to say, oh, that's what they're talking about. And that usually happens when you combine the authority. I was talking about all those authority examples earlier, but there's also the power piece. And the power items can't be argued with. You can argue lots of things in this earth. You can argue how someone feels. You can argue the human capital results. You cannot argue the power results. So what is the power part of empowerment, right? That is how much money is
Right.
exchanging hands. And not just money, but actual things that are currency derivatives, right? So crypto,
Right.
right, could be Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, no allegiances. I have
Right.
them all, right? We all
Right.
have them all. Literally, it's like, how can we exchange monetary instruments back and forth, gold, silver, whatever it is that you exchange, Bitcoin, you name it, whatever the currency is one piece to this. It's not the only piece. It's also the actual percentage, the number of the percentage of how your workforce operates, your productivity score. That's a power portion of
Right.
empowerment. I don't know about you, but this device is always not very far from
Yeah,
me,
that's
right?
right.
But is there ever a moment where it does not
Yeah,
actually tell you what percentage the power icon
that's
has
right.
in your phone? It's always telling you a number. And when it gets below 20, it says, hey, you might want to plug in, right?
Yes.
Literally giving you a reminder that it needs more power, right?
Right.
And then the most powerful of all the power items, and there are so many more that I haven't even mentioned, but the most powerful one is, of course,
Yeah. Time.
and
That's
the
exactly right.
time is exactly the answer to your question, right? Because
Yeah.
ultimately, how much time do you dedicate towards empowerment of people? How much time have you dedicated towards the human capital survey? How much time did you dedicate towards applying for jobs or reading an application or posting an application, right? How much time do you dedicate towards all the things? And do you spend time empowering other people? Do you track that? How do you track that? So if you track all of the power items in empowerment and you do your best to try to track some of those authority items, and then on the same document that you keep this, and I call this your empowerment audit document,
Yes.
which is part of my framework, and you can get your empowerment audit document when you enroll in my learning curriculum. But that would then lead you to the people. And so authority, power, and people is the app of empowerment that you
Yes.
don't have to have internet access to download. It's right there waiting for you to keep track of how you empower yourself and others.
That's the beautiful piece that we talk about is when you track something, now it's in front of you, right? That you're gonna. It's not. We get lost in saying, "Oh yeah, I do this every day and this and this." But how about just taking a week to look at your schedule around the conversations that you have with people, right? And physically track what that looks like, right? People set up even the basics, as you know, in banking, people set up a budget. Oh, I'll spend this much, this much, this much. Why not look at how do you spend your money now first? Look
Right.
at how you spend your money now and then go from that. You have
Yeah.
to look at how do you spend your time now and look at what you do now, right? I
Yeah.
mean, and a lot of people say, "Oh, I know, I know, I know." Look, take the time and the present moment to know. That's where we talk about self mastery.
Yeah.
True?
Yeah. Well, and then ultimately what will happen is when you look at that data, you look at what you wrote in the self-assessment that I shared, you look at your responses of what you wrote about how you drive empowerment for people. And then you go back and you read that again later on down the line when you feel like you've reached an empowerment milestone. Now you've acquired the best thing in this empowerment journey that you could ever acquire. And that would be self-actualization.
Maslow's hierarchy of need, right at the very top.
Yeah. You can't really cement to making change until you see it in yourself.
And that visualization, it's interesting that you brought up 2008. In 2011, I remember I was taking a drive between my house in Florida to here in Dallas. And, on the top of the hour, the radio, listening to the radio and how they ever give you a teaser about listen to the top of the hour, right? Well, this teaser, it said Bill Gates, Stephen Jobs, the G8, and the American Psychiatric Association meeting in Denver to discuss the mental health of America. Well, I'm sitting there, trying to figure all this out and put two and two together. Well, it hit me. Maslow's hierarchy of need downloaded, and that self-actualization. Well, everybody went into food, water, shelter mode, right? In 2008, right? They went into, okay, I'm not going to try anything new, not going to buy a lot of stuff. Just, we're not going to have the dream about a vacation or a new car. And to your point, when you're in that lack mindset, you're not up there dreaming or visualizing what you want to do or who you want to be. True. You're just trying to focus on, tomorrow. And that's exactly right. And, this is why when we go through any financial crisis or hard time, in our physical world, we have to stay up there in that free thinking, dreaming, visualized space. True?
Yeah, well, because that's where all the creativity is going to live. That's where the empowerment's going to live. You're not going to be driving empowerment doing this thing, just literally going from point A to point B.
It definitely have to have a higher mental vibration, a mental state of, you can't be living in that day to day, just from one day to the next. You have to lead from that strategic and big picture of what you want to be, right? And what type of life you want to live. When it comes to that, developing a strategy, does that come from that space, that mental space of, right, the free thinking?
It's actually two parts. It's ultimately connected to that, but the part one is around your 10 differences that you have.
Mm-hmm.
So each of the 10 differences has a prioritization list of how to drive empowerment through your leadership actions, found in my framework. And so by conducting the differences assessment, you'll now be able to recognize which ones are going to be more potentially privileged or disprivileged. And the disprivileged ones that you have that are differences, those are the ones that you're going to need more self-empowerment for, or someone to drive empowerment for you, right? So that would be, signing up for a development program specifically for one of those differences or whatever the case may be. And then if you have a privilege in relation to some of those differences or any one of them, then now you know that you should be in a position where you're driving empowerment through those differences for others, right? And so that's the model that
Right.
happens. And so utilizing that model now helps you to build the prioritization list for each differences to drive empowerment in which setting, but then your overall 10 empowering actions, the leadership actions, also get prioritized when you're building this strategy. So how it's presented in my learning curriculum, when someone goes on my website and enrolls in my leadership course, it's empowering action 1 to 10, from empower to enlighten. And those are the 1 to 10 for my differences, my intersectionality, me personally.
Right.
So you don't have to do it the way that Ashley Brundage did it. You do it how it works for your intersectionality by taking the differences assessment, by taking the empowerment self-assessment, and then looking at the data and share it and connecting it to the research found in my book and my workbook and all the curriculum that goes with it. And then that's when the special moment happens, when you prioritize the 10 actions that you're going to take as a leader to drive empowerment faster through these leadership actions and the prioritization of them.
What I love about that whole package is it's the self realization, right, and evaluation, um, and then looking how you apply that to empower others, right? That's what true leadership is. It's self-reflection first, self-identity, right? To really harness how you're going to take that, your leadership skill, and then how do you leverage that to uplift and empower others? That's what I love about the whole program that you have. It's not just here you go, here are your strengths, this, a strategy for you individually. You're encompassing not only yourself or the individual, but how do you leverage those strengths to uplift and empower others? I mean, what's the point if you're not going out there to make it bigger, right? To take what you've been given and to share that strength to uplift others. That's one of the biggest things that I love that you've created from your own experience and empowerment at the bank, right? Just your journey. And then to say, hey, I'm going to give this, I want to share this with others. I mean, right? That's what I love about you and what you stand for. So, what we want to do, when we're talking about empowering actions, give me some examples of some of the empowering actions that you recommend.
Yeah. So what's so great about the actions is that each one is almost an entire workshop for you to grow as a leader. And I actually listed the empowering, like I mentioned, those are the way that I used them to grow in my career, 1 to 10. So of course I used empower as as action number 1, and that was part of the research that I did. And better understanding the app of empowerment so I could track my successes along the journey. And empower as an action can also connect to all the other leadership actions that you do that are not just found in the other 9 empowering actions from my framework. So that's what's really cool about leading with that one. And then the second empowering action, and I'll just give you my top 3 for me. And my second one, though I love all 10, but the second one is Inspire, which is literally an entire communication workshop. I didn't want to call the action communication because that's just not exciting.
Yeah, sure. No, and I think because really the word inspire, that's really what it is, right? I mean, that sets the intention of what you need to do with your communication.
Right,
I mean, that's right.
exactly why I call it that.
I mean, it's so perfect. I got goosebumps because it's about using those words.
They're not just
really,
words.
no,
Exactly. You got it.
I
They
mean,
are actions.
words are currency. I have this shirt from one of
Yeah.
a publisher she had a workshop, and the shirt says words are currency, right? They have a vibration to them. And like you said, it's an action.
Right.
So you combine action words, especially with communication. I mean, that's on fire.
Yeah.
That's on
So,
fire.
and then the third one that I was doing a lot of in my journey was educate. And so educate is kind of the ultimate paradigm of empowering actions and the differences, because it's also one of the differences. Your educational background is
Yes.
one of the 10 differences that really it impacts us as a commonality that we have as humans.
Wow.
And so what's really cool about this, though, is that to remember to make an action an empowering action, then that means you need to be able to communicate what is the app of empowerment that you're combining with the action. So, for example, in relation to educate, well, then, okay, from that education that you did, how did that make you feel? Did you learn something? You learned something new as a leader, right? So then write that down. And then what was the power item from that education that you did? So how much money did it cost? How much time did you spend doing the education? How many people were in the educational discussion, right? How
Right.
many people did you educate? Okay. And then who are those people is the people part. And that's how you can then know what the app of empowerment is for one of the empowering actions.
So and I know we're almost to time, but I am wanting to ask you, a lot of people get hung up with the number of people. So when they're looking at analysis, tracking success, we get hung up on the volume of numbers. Look at social media. Oh, I got 10 million followers or whatever. It's deceiving. So what's been your experience when we're talking about tracking that power, right? It's not always going to be evident in numbers. So what other things could we evaluate or can be tracked or evaluate instead of numbers or besides numbers?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like I was mentioning, you're not just well, the numbers are usually the power items.
Yeah.
Right. So then you also remember you can track the authority items. They're a lot harder.
Yes.
But you can do that, right? You do that through how people are feeling.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah.
Right. So like one of the great ways that I love to track the authority is literally a survey at the beginning of a session and say, rate how you're feeling, 1 to 5. 5 being I absolutely love being here. 1 is I could really care less about today. You can literally ask that and then ask at the end, right? So ask at the beginning to level set, ask at the end, and then hopefully you can see the data between the two, right? Did you shift anyone's opinion?
Yes.
Right? You could ask people about what their comfort level or knowledge level is on empowerment. That's one of my most favorite survey questions to gauge the authority of the room, right? And then you're also going to get a power statistic then, because there's going to be a number associated with it as well. But you'll get a sense for how people feel. But don't be afraid to do a 360 review panel. I mean, honestly, any real good person who's taking leadership steps, who wants to disrupt their HR cycle, is going to, and not just your coworkers, not just.
Oh my gosh, yes, yeah.
Okay.
All the way around. That's what a 360 is supposed to be about, right? Not just your direct reports, right?
It's literally, a friend. It's someone who does not know you. It's someone who literally, it needs to be a complete mixture of people for it to actually really resonate.
And I see, and that this is another episode we could do together, but traditional HR industry, we got to get out of this lack mentality. Oh, we're going to only use, this assessment and ask, like you said, a 360. Oh, we're only going to ask the direct report and then their coworker or whatever. And again, this is an investment in true information, right? Let's not penny ante. I mean, it just really is not worth that. You're not getting collecting true data that's going to be useful, right? I mean, come on, people, quit being cheap. I'm sorry, but that's kind of how I roll. I mean, I'm just like, this has got to be valuable. Information is only as good as the power you put into it. Correct?
Right. Yeah. I mean, you can invest in any leadership development program in the world. Right. And, statistically speaking, most leadership development programs are, run by a lot of white, straight, cisgender guys. But let's reframe like who might be your organizational's leadership expert.
Right.
And that's really one of the reasons why I created this platform to drive empowerment for people, because this way it comes from unlikely sources and unlikely places as well.
Well, and also from an individual development and growth, right? People don't have to wait till their employer pays for a leadership course, right? You have individuals that sign up for it and can take it and not be a corporate workshop, right? You have individuals that can take it.
People can go right on empoweringdifferences.com and they can enroll in my leadership course. It runs asynchronously every day, so you can you do it on your own schedule. I give you a syllabus and a plan that you can navigate through, but then that way you can actually download all the resources. You get my book, you get my workbook, you get the empowerment assessment, the differences assessment, you get the empowerment audit, and then the professional development outline, so you can submit it for SHRM accreditation.
I love that
outline and your certificate. If you pass the quiz, obviously you'll get a certificate.
Right.
And I rated it at 40 hours of full work. If you do the workbook, you read the book, and you do all the videos, because there's about 5 hours of the video
Right.
content as well, where I will train you on each of the 10 empowering actions and the 4 empowerment steps. And it's a full scale thing. And then obviously, yeah, you could totally submit it to your boss or your leadership development person to pay to reimburse you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So can you put that also in the chat? And so we'll also, I know that you'll send that to me and I can post it on our HR Disruptor Summit page. So everybody has that information. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I can do that.
That'll be awesome. Any last words of, I think, encouragement or advice to people who are feeling a little lost right now and feeling, gosh, I just think of what I went through, when the door has been slammed in your face and life is asking you to be your authentic self, like it's time to be who you are, the greatness. What advice would you share with others?
Well, the way you communicate really matters around these topics, because being in that environment is emotionally draining sometimes. There's a reason that that it was called the Great Resignation. Did you ever hear it called that?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really interesting. It's almost like the person that coined that was trying to send a message that is not good.
Yeah. It's not good, people.
Right.
I mean,
That's why why else would they have called it resign, right? Resign. What is it when you resign? Like literally it's like laying on a sword.
Yeah.
Right. It's not a positive thing typically. I mean, yes, when you leave, it's like it could be a middle finger to the middle of the sky, right?
Yes.
Could be that. But the act of resigning or resonating, right, is not typically seen as a positive thing.
No.
Right. So here's the power in the words, right? And why Inspire is your workshop for you that you really want to engage with, right? Is exactly because the words matter. So you know what I call it? Not the Great Resignation. I call it the Great Reprioritization.
Yes.
Because all you've done now is you've chosen to highlight things that are going to be more important to you.
Right.
And you're going to look at it with a positive frame of mind because you're only just reprioritizing. And when you do that, you're going to automatically be that much closer to a smile on your face.
Yes.
Thinking in this frame. And now because you're thinking with a positive smile and an endorphin, you're going to start to eliminate some of these additional barriers, because you know who adds the most barriers to any obstacle that you're trying to obtain is you.
Us. That's right. Individual.
There isn't anything else. Yes, there are potentially other barriers, but really the only ones that matter are the ones that you put in the way.
That's it. That's absolutely correct. Oh, my friend. Thank you so much, Ashley B. I just really so appreciate you and our connection. And we'll be putting your links to your course and your site and how to contact you on the replay of this as well. And so again, thank you so much. And I look forward to having you back. And also, please put in, tell everybody about the voyage. Go ahead.
Yeah. So actually, I'm hosting an empowerment summit, which is happening in London right as your thing ends. So it's like literally
I know.
in October. And then I'm also hosting the Voyage of Empowerment presented by Alternative Wealth Partners. And so that's a 5-night voyage at sea of a conference. It's an all-inclusive conference. There are 4 cabins left.
I love it. I love it.
Conference. So if you were thinking about coming, now's the time to make your reservation, because
yes,
next week, there will not be 4 cabins left. There will be 0 cabins
I
left.
think by the end of this week, there's not going to be 4 left. There might be the end of the day. Okay. After this goes out.
So you can sign up. It's $2,000 to attend the conference. The $2,000 is an all-inclusive price that includes your conference registration. It includes 5 nights of a balcony room or better on the ship the Royal Caribbean Mariner of the Seas. We're going to go to Cozumel. We're going to go to the Bahamas. We're going to have all of my leadership course and curriculum is included in that, plus the taxes, the port fees, the tips, the
Oh, wow.
gratuities,
That's
the
awesome.
internet package, the drinking package, whether that be of one variety or the other, it doesn't matter. All of it is inclusive. Plus, we're going to take a trip to a school in Cozumel, Mexico, and we're going to give back some treasured, measured, empowered
Oh,
resources at
nice.
the school.
Yes.
So literally, that's all inclusive. If someone told you they had an all-inclusive trip, and they lied to you because you hadn't yet been on a voyage of empowerment.
I love it. Oh my gosh, that is so excellent. I tell you what, my friend, I'm just so glad to have connected with you and to support you as well. So, again, we'll be posting your contact information and that registration. Please add the registration for the voyage, because I'm going to put out there that there's only four rooms, or what's four left? Four
cabins. So
okay. I'm putting that out there after this post when we post this recording. So we'll have that link on there as well. My friend, until the next time, appreciate you.
My pleasure.